Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 67 to Philadelphia. Hi, Alex.
How are you? The city of brotherly love. That's a great place.
The last time I went there was, the 90s for sure. I didn't actually visit the airport, so I'm going to rely on you.
It was a couple of years ago, but it was very briefly. Back to Manchester, I think, on one of my more circuitous itineraries. But yeah, it's nice. I'd like to go back to that city and explore it some more.
Obviously, you have a picture of me standing up the stairs of the library. That's where Rocky, they have the statue and they even have the footsteps where you're supposed to stand. That's where he was. Of course, you have to do this. And you listen to the music as well, the Rocky Balboa music when you do the steps. So you're completely in it. Anyway, the reason I wanted to do Philadelphia is, of course, because the Eagles won. I'm not a huge fan of U.S. football. I usually watch the Super Bowl this time. I didn't even watch it because for us, it's the middle of the night. I will admit something that a lot of people will hate me. I'm not a big fan of the Patriots. I'm not a big fan of Tom Brady. And I love underdogs. I mean, I really love underdogs. New Patriots fans, Boston people, don't worry, I still love you as well. Don't hate me, please.
You know what? I think the Patriots are the most hated team in America anyway. So,
oh wow,
just because they're irritatingly good. I think everybody hated the Niners and the Cowboys in the 80s and 90s. So it's success breeds hatred if you're not part of the team that's winning all the time. So yeah, it was a great game. Fantastic.
Yes, I saw the highlights the next morning, and yes, I was sad I didn't watch it.
It's a horrible time of day anyway.
Exactly, absolutely. I don't know. Can we qualify ourselves as winners? Sometimes we have great listenership. People are really kind with us. But last episode was a bit of a loser one because, of course, it's just right after. This is the worst in our 3 years. Is it 3 years we've been doing this?
Yeah, it is. 3 years almost to the day.
Yeah, it's today, by the way. It's the 9th of February, Friday. And I aim to release that tomorrow. And that's the thing, not leave a little bit of time between the recording. Because
that got us,
that's what happened. Yeah, that got us. So the 380 that we said was about to die, well, is not dying. The Niki airline that was supposedly built by IAG didn't happen. Bombardier, the story changed. I mean, the entire story of our show changed. So sorry, guys, because to the point I even hesitated. I said I had made the mix, and I said, should I release that? Because half of the show is wrong.
It was so funny because literally, moments after you pulled the trigger on it, we were messaging back and forth to the point where I think after we traded 3 stories, we're like, wow, the first half of the next show is just going to be recanting on all of these stories. But that's good. I mean, it's exciting times in the aviation world.
I think that because we are both hurt by this, episode and having to cope with that, these emotions, I think we need emotional support. So we need a peacock, don't you think?
I think this is the craziest thing I've seen in a long time. This lady was denied boarding on a United flight because she wanted to bring her, and we're not making this up, her emotional support peacock with her. And I think United said, okay, enough of this stuff. It's ridiculous. Go away. And she was turned away. And actually, I think it's prompted a lot of airlines to change their quote unquote emotional support animal policies to be a lot more strict, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it was already something that was in the move. I don't think there's yet a federal regulation about this, meaning restricting the use of emotional support animals. But it seemed to have gone a little bit overboard. I mean, of course, the peacock is the latest in a long series of that people would say that X or Y animal is an emotional support animal when it's not. Most of them wanted to simply have their animal with them and not in the hold or not in a cage or something.
Yeah.
So, and I think as well, some other passengers were, kind of bothered, and some animals also made a mess. I'm not talking only about feces and other, but would actually eat seats and stuff. So, have you ever witnessed emotional animals within an aircraft yourself?
I don't think I've witnessed emotional support animals. I don't know if I'd be able to tell the difference between someone just bringing their pet on board like a dog, which is frequent occurrence in the US, because they're allowed to, and an emotional support animal. I don't think I've ever seen an animal other than a dog or a cat in a cage on board, except the hawks or falcons, birds of prey in the Middle East, which you see from time to time. But no, I don't think I have my emotional support spider monkey.
There were stories, remember, there were stories about a penguin, I think, at some point, or, I mean, the peacock. Apparently, this lady, she's an artist or photographer, I think, based in New York. She had requested that the animal would be on board. She was denied 3 times before coming to Newark. It was in New York. So, of course, she comes out. Her pictures are very funny about it, because this is really like a very, very large,
huge bird.
To be fair, she even, I think, proposed to buy a seat for the animal, but they said, come on, that's not going to fly. I mean, I don't know if peacocks actually do fly, do they?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I'm not that clued up on large birds.
By the way, if you guys love peacocks, and especially if you like that peacock apparently has an Instagram account. I'll put that in the in the show notes. Which, by the way, I apologize, because last episode show notes are not up. I'm so busy these days that I didn't have the time to do it. Nobody complains, maybe nobody looks at them. I don't know, but I promise you guys, I will have the show notes back up quickly. So the women with peacock, at least at the heart. I have myself pets. So I like pets, obviously. And the peacock was in a kind of dire position, I think, and she kind of rescued him. I think it's a him. So she had a good heart, at least. Maybe we can mock her for wanting to bring the bird in a plane, the bird in the bird. That's very meta. Yeah, sorry, that's very bad. But at least she has a heart. This other woman, she dumped her hamster in the loo of the airport. So she was supposed to fly with Spirit. She had called the airline before. She had gotten the information that yes, she would be able to fly with the hamster, which is a much smaller animal than a peacock. Arriving at the airport, I think she went through security, but then she was denied entry to the plane. And apparently, that's the worst. Apparently, an employee from Spirit told her, you can either let it loose outside of the airport or flush him down the toilet. And she opted for the second option.
This is insane, isn't it? Absolutely insane.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And I don't think we're getting the full story here, but she did do it. She flushed this hamster down the toilet. I find it very hard to believe that an employee or any decent human being would not jokingly tell them to do that and that they would comply. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn more about this, but it's the craziest thing. It really is.
And I don't know if she ever used the term emotional support animal, but you cannot call that an emotional support animal if 5 minutes later you just flush it down the toilet. I mean, and she has no heart. I'm sorry. I cannot have respect for you because you don't kill animals. No. I just don't get it. And as far as the airline goes, because of course the airline denies having one of its employees ever advising such a course of action. But maybe, ultra low cost airline, ultra low cost morals. I don't know. Not very. Since I just talked about United with a peacock, and because, I'm in 2018, I feel having to be balanced and generous towards the airlines we usually criticize. So whilst United can be criticized a lot of time, there's this story, I don't know if you've heard about it, that there was this person that had a voucher for a plane ticket issued 19 years ago. That was before even the bankruptcies and everything. So it's a different airline, actually. It's not even the same airline anymore. They could have just said, whatever, that's not valid anymore. They accepted it. Yeah,
it was a rather lovely story. This chap, actually, he was in California, wasn't he, in the Central Valley, and he was due to go to a wedding 19 years ago and for whatever reason wasn't able to. And while he was going through some stuff in his garage, stumbled across this paper ticket. And it was a quote-unquote forever ticket. It said in the contract of carriage that if they can't use it, the value is good forever. And as you say, United then went bankrupt, and during that bankrupt, all obligations were discharged. So legally, they could have, like you said, gone and said, no, this doesn't do it. And he tried to call a bunch of people through reservation system, customer service. They weren't able to help. And it wasn't until he went on Twitter and said, here's my situation, that United said, you know what, go ahead. This is nice. This is a nice story, and we're happy to make it, the happy ending.
That's how it should be, by the way, right? Of course, it's not a ticket. I think it was like less than $400. And that's interesting, they baked in the inflation in it, apparently. That's why I'm hearing through Fire Talk. I think the equivalent of today would be maybe $600 or something, and they did okay with it. Good story.
It is a good story, and
on.
I think that the value, I mean, not to be cynical about this, but the value, the PR value that they got out of this was worth more than $600, because here we are talking about it on our podcast.
Yeah, it's not every day that we are giving nice stories about United. But as I said, I'm a changed man in 2018, maybe, and I'm gonna be more balanced. Talking about balance, so let's go for the first story we completely screwed up in our last episode. So we were saying, but everybody, not only us, I'm not trying to diminish our role here, that the 380 was dying, that Airbus was about to close the program altogether. We said many times that there was a war of words, probably, backdoor negotiations, because negotiations never broke down between Emirates and Airbus about a new order. You remember, guys, that I said, I think 3-4 episodes ago, that during the Dubai Air Show, Emirates really did crush the dreams of Airbus by announcing the Dreamliner instead of the planned announcement of 380. So I think there was really tough negotiations about the details and conditions. But to make the story short, Emirates is buying 20 more A380s with an option for 16 more.
This really was a surprise, I think, to everybody, given the whole 787 sleight of hand that they did at the Dubai Air Show. We thought that was it. Not only are they not ordering, but they're actually pretty pissed off at Airbus to pull something like this. And that's clearly not the case. And interesting commentary on the state of the A380 project or program is that, like you say, there was no even hint that they were going to go for the Neo.
Plus,
that was a plus, pardon me.
They didn't go for it.
They didn't even
That's very
know.
strange.
I mean, so whatever performance increases or improvements that they were touting on the Plus were not enough to get them to sign it away. And as you say, the economics were clearly in Emirates' favor for them to even consider this.
Yeah, I'm sure they got, and everybody says it, obviously, they must have gotten a pretty sweet deal.
They must have.
I mean, part of the negotiation must have been about the deal itself, and maybe, and that's the other maybe, part of the negotiation was that Emirates has baked in, maybe, we don't know the conditions of the contracts again, but wanted some reassurance of having a long-term commitment from Airbus, because they didn't want to buy an aircraft that would be killed 2 years down the line. So maybe I don't know exactly, because I don't think that Airbus can promise anyone that they're going to do the 380 forever. No. But I think that if Emirates wants to continue its strategy with 380, which they could have gone another way. They could have said, you know what, we're going to wait for the 777X, which has 450 seats, and go completely there and keep on going with our current 380s, but never replace them and fight. They could have maybe imagined something different. But for doubling down on their 380 strategy, at least for the foreseeable future, maybe they asked for some other type of reassurance from Airbus. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was a lot of that, because you're right. They're not going to want to invest hundreds of millions, billions into a program that Airbus know that they're going to kill in the future. They needed to have some kind of guarantees. I would love to have been a fly on the wall during those negotiations. They must have been quite extraordinary.
It's really fun to reread all that's been said in the past 12 months, because now you can read that we knew the conversation was ongoing. We knew negotiations were actually happening. They never broke down. But now you can see that the war of words with a lot of PR to try to make the other break, to say, no, I'm not going to flinch. You flinch first. But as a passenger, I'm happy that the 380 survives.
Me too. I'm a fan of that airplane. I'm flying on an Emirates one next weekend. It's good. I think it allows them to, Emirates that is, to think and develop their onboard product for the next 10 years as well, which has to be an advantage to them. They've cemented what the future for the 777 looks like with all of these wonderful things that we'll perhaps talk about a little bit later, but now they can do the same with the A380 because they know they're invested for the long run.
So they currently have 101 380s. If you put all of them together, I think in total, the order were 178 380s, but there will never be 178 380s concurrently, because some of the new ones will replace some of the first ones ever gotten. Not all of them, because Sheikh Al Maktoum, the chairman and chief exec of Emirates, basically hinted at the fact that there will be new routes. This order will allow an expansion of the network.
What's interesting about the strategy is that now they've got the flexibility to do that. Whereas in the past, I don't think they have. As the performance of both of those airframes increases, the 777 and the A380 perhaps, or whatever they end up doing, and then, like you said, drawing the Dreamliner into the mix, they can start to really think about, okay, what's this point-to-point stuff that we're going to do as opposed to running everything through Dubai, which means hopefully we're going to see more Fifth Freedom routes, which we can in London selfishly take advantage of. I mean, they've already announced they're going to do Santiago to Chile. I don't know if that must be with a 777, but I think this is a good thing strategically for them. Obviously, that must be that, or they wouldn't have done it. But I'm optimistic that it plays into a broader Fifth Freedom strategy that you and I will benefit from.
It's interesting as well because when we talk Fifth Freedom, I mean, if anybody wants to listen to all our episodes, our 66 episodes, I'm not sure you want to do that. We have some listeners that attempt this. We talk a lot about Fifth Freedom related to Emirates. We talked a little bit, of course, about the Fifth Freedom that some of the US airlines are doing in the Pacific. The airline that does a lot of Fifth Freedom that we've talked a bit about is Singapore Airline. Actually, they are Frankfurt, New York. They have some, I think they do to Auckland to Melbourne or something. They have something also in South Africa, I think. Cobus, please correct us if I'm wrong. I was recently looking a route to go to, where was it? To go to Asia. I'll be in Scandinavia. And interestingly, from Stockholm, they do Stockholm, Moscow, Singapore.
Really?
There's no direct. They have a stopover in Moscow, meaning there's another Fifth Freedom there. I mean, it's interesting how much we don't talk about them.
Yeah, I know that Malaysian do some as well. There's some interesting ones like Cape Town, Buenos Aires, or something like that.
I think so.
I like those. I think that those are neat. That you see a random, an airline that has no business being in this part of the world, which is rather nice.
The one I want to do is Air New Zealand from London to LAX.
Yes, that's a very popular one and actually very reasonably priced as well. I look at it all the time.
Yeah, they have these
alliance for me.
Yeah, that's always this issue, right? They have these seats thing where you can sleep in the economy.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it now because we've talked about it many times as well. I mean, I really want to try them. The delivery is amazing.
Yeah.
So currently, for reference, so Singapore Airlines has 21 380s. They're expecting 3 more. Qantas has 12, Lufthansa has 14, BA 12. We said that BA was maybe looking into acquiring more. Will they be on the secondary market? I mean, these airplanes that are coming off the market, a few of Singapore just came off. We have rumors of low-cost airlines thinking about them. Yep. There's rumors of Asian airlines thinking about them. There's rumors of BA thinking about them. But the ones from Emirates will come off the market as well, and the lessors have to do something with those aircraft. Air France has 10, Etihad has 10, Korean Air has 10, Qatar has 9 and 1 in order, so there will be 10 for them as well. All that to say that the books are still not great for it's really Emirates that makes the aircraft survive. Airbus will keep the production going at least for 10 years. The rate will be 6 aircraft a year. They went up to 12 this year. They're going to be 8 in 2019, and then they go down to 6 per year.
Not very much, is it?
No, but at least it's going on, right?
Yeah, those numbers also show how much of an outlier Emirates is with this program. 101 already versus, what did you say, the second most was 18?
Singapore Airlines with 21.
21. I mean, come on. It's basically the Emirates A380.
Yes,
just buy the program and just...
But which comes back to your point. I promise you guys we're going to move off this topic, but it's fascinating, which... To your point, where you were saying earlier that they didn't go for the 380 plus is very puzzling, because you'd say the 380 plus was really kind of gesture from Airbus. Everything they do with the 380 is to satisfy Emirates. I'm not saying everything, but most of it.
When you see those numbers, you can understand why.
Yeah, of course. So you're like, okay, so they build this aircraft it's not a Neo, because I think the fuel efficiency was like 4%. So it's not great. They added a little bit winglets and stuff. It was more about cramping more people in it, so removing the big staircase. And maybe Emirates decided that they'd rather have the current staircase because it's better looking or something, and they don't need to add more people, because now that they've actually released 380s with 2 classes, so they let go of the first class in some of their routes, maybe they're figuring that a 2-class 380 is cramped enough, and they don't need the economics work with that current plane. They don't need to add even more seats. I don't know.
Yeah. They clearly know what they're doing.
Yeah. So the 747, how is it faring?
We mourn its death every single episode, and I'm glad to say that we've been doing it a little bit prematurely because UPS have just firmed up an order for 14. Granted, they are freighters, but they are 14 747 or 748s. Which is great. And they've added some 767 freighters to the mix as well. But 14 is enough to keep that line going for a lot longer. When we talked about this last episode, the numbers that were coming off the line and the speed at which airlines were retiring them on the back of our conversation about there being no more in the US. And that made me nervous. And so this is some wonderful news. I still haven't flown on a 748. I really want to, but again, wrong alliance.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, we were talking back and forth, Alex, at the beginning of this year. I haven't flown yet, which is, we're second week of February. It has happened to me for a long time that I haven't flown, but again, it's on purpose, as I told you guys. But I have a lot of flights coming up. As usual, probably, 70% of my long-haul flights are to Asia. And most of the deals that I found currently, and they're great deals to Asia, are on SkyTeam. So a lot of KLM, Air France. Even Delta is pretty good to the US right now, although someone like Norwegian makes more sense in terms of pure price-wise. My main alliance is Star Alliance. I've been betting on that alliance for the past 6-7 years. I was on SkyTeam back then. I was the highest level, and then I completely switched. Since recently, 2-3 years, I'm on OneWorld, and I haven't got lucky to get into that thing where basically my gold is insured until 2020. So I don't have to fight about gold this year, which is why I'm only going to go for OneWorld, meaning BA or Cathay, if they are good in terms of pricing. I'm not going to go otherwise. No. And Emirates, I'm okay to let it slip to silver. I'm always been between silver and gold in the past 20, so 7 years. Oh, wow. 7-8 years. Oh, God, more than I thought, actually. Meaning I can't do 3, 4, 5 alliances, right? And I was telling Alex, it was like, should I move away from Star and rebuild on SkyTeam? Because again, all the best deals I'm finding are always on SkyTeam. Maybe because they do not serve Asia as well as the others, is maybe that's why they're so aggressive into offering deals. I don't know. Many people say they're the lesser of the 3 alliances, but I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, I think they're increasing their capacity as a group, which is always going to help. But I've also seen really strong deals to certain cities that's not Japan over sort of the next 6 months. Like unbelievably, I've never seen them so low. And on BA, Cathay, Qantas, all those guys. So there's something going on. And I wonder if it's anything to do with Norwegian going into the market and Scoot announcing more and more European routes, that there's price pressure there, which of course is only a good thing for us as consumers.
There's even one new airline that is called Air Belgium. I don't remember now. They used to be an airline, I think a charter. They went into bankruptcy. Somebody bought the name back. They're going to open, I think, Brussels to Hong Kong. So we have all these new airlines going to Asia. Is there overcapacity? Is there a price war? There's currently a price war in the US because all the big airlines have announced that they are increasing their capacity, which for the first time in years have had the shareholders a bit
jittery.
You saw some stocks going down in the past 2 weeks. I mean, it's not a crash or anything, but although the Dow is not doing great in the past few days. I don't know. Are we close to another crisis? I don't know. I think you're right. It's more a shift towards this long-haul, low-cost, gradually entering the market. I was looking for a fare to Singapore. For the first time on Google Flights, I saw Norwegian appearing. I was like, oh, wow. And they're very cheap.
They are very cheap. They are very cheap. They keep screwing up my Google Flights results, actually, no matter where I look, because you're like, oh, my goodness. It's orders of magnitude cheaper than everybody else. And of course, you have that one bar graph which represents the lowest price, and then you go in and everybody else is way higher. Not that I wouldn't fly on Norwegian, but Yeah.
The only problem I find on Google Flight is that you cannot ask Google Flight to memorize a specific subset of airlines you want to search to. You can do it if you want, but every single time you have to go select by alliance. then you can remove some of the airlines. So I will admit on this show that when I do, I usually remove all the Chinese airlines. I remove Air India, although I'm hearing in Glucode, at Glucode on Twitter, will soon be on our show. He has great stuff to talk about the airline industry. So he's invited. I think he flew once or twice, Air India. The Dreamliner they've got from London is not bad. But again, they are airlines I just don't want to fly. So you for that, it's still not completely flexible, but we are outliers.
We are outliers, and it is getting better and better. I like that Norwegian is and the others to an extent, but mainly Norwegian just because they're the biggest and the baddest so far, that they are putting this pressure on so many of the incumbents on these otherwise, sort of oligopical. That's not a word. I just made up that word, but you know what I mean? Like what is the word? Maybe it is oligopical.
Well, yeah, maybe it
anyway. We're going to get lots of angry letters and tweets about that. Letters. Has anyone ever written us a letter? But it's good.
No,
I think this is actual challenger economics at work, which is exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. By the way, Google Flights, we said a few episodes ago that they have this beta, the new version of Google Flights. Google, if somebody from Google is listening, why do I have to opt in at every single time I go there? Can I just not have it?
That's a great point.
I like it. I don't need to go back to the old version every time.
Great.
There's this explore thing. So for instance, now you can say, I want to depart from these 6 airports in Europe and I want to go to Asia and I want to go in business class.
Yeah.
And they're going to show you all your fare and then you can zoom in into Google Maps, which are the fares. There, by the way, that's a little trick for you guys. If you do that kind of trips, if you're lucky enough to be able, can I go anywhere and I have 1 week for holidays, for instance, there you cannot remove airlines, as in you can only opt in or out from the 3 alliances. So what you should do, you don't look at the Explore. You go under normal search and you do 5 airports to Asia.
Yeah.
You choose your airlines there. So you remove or add whatever. And then you go to Explore and then you can actually get only the subset of airlines with all the possible routes you can go to with. And it works pretty cool. If you are in a market for, 1 week of holidays in Asia, 1 week of holidays in South America, you can just say, I want to go to South America. These are the 5, 6, 7 airports I want to go to. And it's closer to Matrix now.
It's so good. And we're trying to plan our Easter vacation at the moment. And it's just been an absolute godsend. Although the shortcomings that you mentioned, they are beyond annoyances. And I think that they limit some of the functionality for people like us that are, slightly more quote unquote power users. But that said, I got handed a travel budget recently. And of course, I love a challenge like that. And I ended up using Matrix to find a phenomenal deal over Google Flights because I was able to search. Again, you're kind of going into ultra power user mode, but I could find mixed class fare, multi-city fares quickly and easily. And I got a ridiculous deal, which I'll tell you guys about probably after I do it. It's pretty spectacular. But I saw a thread recently where someone was like, "Oh, I hate Google Flights." I'm like, "No, then you don't know what you're doing because it's by far the best."
It's like you said, it's not enough, especially for power users. I think Matrix is still. I mean, it's obscure if you've never done it. You're like, what am I supposed to do here? And plus, you cannot book.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Google Chrome extension, which is called Book on Matrix or something like that. I will put the name in the show notes, where when you have done your Matrix search and you arrive at a page which shows you the actual fare, then what you can do usually is either try to replicate that on Google Flights or call a travel agent. But this button will attempt to find the exact same deal you have on that page on one of the OTAs online. It's pretty well done. It's not able to succeed every time because some of these fares probably in Matrix are super obscure and you really need to call the airline to actually make them possible. But this tool gets them 80% of the time. It's really well done. I think it's called Book on Matrix. If you look it up on the Chrome extension store.
I haven't actually used it. I actually forgot that it existed until you just mentioned it. I should because it was kind of a pain in the butt to book this fare that I found, but I got it in the end.
So in Google Flights, is introducing more and more features as we go on. 2 more that were just announced, a part of the rollout of the new version of Google Flights. One, it will not only show you the delays. Sometimes you have these things as this flight is usually delayed by 30 minutes.
Yeah.
This now, they have enough data, they will start predicting delays. They will tell you based on historical data, current weather conditions, etc. They will say, okay, this flight, there's a probability of being delayed. It's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Especially if, I don't know, short connections or stuff like that. At least you know what you're getting into. If you buy a flight with delays protection, they will also, once you've booked the trip, and if you use Google Trips, which I don't really use anymore, to be honest with you, because for me it's not TripIt yet, etc. But it will get there one day. This will keep you appraised. Not yet, but soon enough, keeps you appraised about the delays that the airline might not have announced, the airport might not have announced, but that Google, with all the data it has, will say, you know what? You might have a delay.
Yeah, which is fantastic, especially if you're looking at separate ticket transfers.
Non-protected transfers.
Yeah, exactly, which I do a lot of, especially if you're kind of going, we look at all of the premium cabin deals basically anywhere that's not London, because we get so skanked on all of the made up fees. That's where you would want that if you're going to fly over to Düsseldorf or whatever on EasyJet, and if hey, this flight on average is 47 minutes delayed, and you've left yourself 62 minutes to do the thing, then you're not going to take that flight, are you? That's invaluable information.
The other valuable information that Google Flight will now show you is more exact amenities. So especially in the US, where you guys have these new basic economy fares, they will clearly tell you that, okay, you cannot change your flight, you cannot bring a luggage on board, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, United is already getting a backlash from its customer about their basic economy, and also from their crew, who have to explain to people who have bought, people come with assumptions of economy. They bought basic economy because probably the UX of the website told them it's a cheaper fare. Yep. And then only when they arrive in the aircraft do they realize that this and this and that is not authorized for them. And thus you have the crew. So you have one of the unions for United, I think, for the crew, has written an open letter to United telling them, look, we won't continue this. But it's interesting that customers are giving it a backlash. We always say in this show that people are very price sensitive, but there's something going on, right?
Clearly, to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Google Flights has been great about surfacing this information, and also putting seat pitch in is one thing, but telling you, is this good or is this bad, is another thing, which they do. They when I'm looking at flights to Japan, they say, BA seat pitch is 76 centimeters average, but then you look at JAL, 84 centimeters, and then it says right next to it, this is above average.
Yeah.
And that context is important for people that don't know. Is 76 good? Is 84 good? It just helps you with to give you enough information to feel comfortable to make an informed choice.
The 2 things, and then we'll move on. We drag on news today because I know we like chatting. We haven't.
Let's talk.
We have. That's what we do all day. We just book flights, Alex and myself.
It's true.
Yeah. What I really would like to see on Google Flights and on others, because I like competition, like Momondo, I like all the others. Skyscanner is one that I really love, by the way, as well, because it shows the amenities super well. I would love these guys to not only show me the fact that, this is the average pitch and this is below or above average, like you just mentioned, but why not the actual seat map? Because this is readily available on a website. What about pictures of the seat? Because usually I do that. I will then Google image to say, okay, what is this aircraft? So I was coming back to our story we were saying earlier, I'm looking for flights to go to Asia. Garuda is really the Asian arm of SkyTeam, based in Indonesia. It's a 5-star Skytrax airline, so they really are
really
solid.
Upped their game, haven't they?
Yeah, I've never flown them. I'm really curious to fly them. They are from London, the longest flight you can take from London, because London to Jakarta is 14 hours and 30 minutes. So I want to do that one day, just to have to say I've done the longest flight from London. I didn't know how it looked like inside, right? So you find these deals and then you're like, okay, so what is exactly the economy class look like? How does business class look like? What? And then if I do stop in Jakarta and then we go on to, let's say, Bangkok, and there's a 330, I don't remember now right now, but what does that look like? Is that an old aircraft? These are information that by a simple Google search you can find. So I would love that any of these guys, Skyscanner is very close as well, that they display you more pictures of what's going to happen, not only like information, but also picture. Hey, this is the seat you're going to have, or you're probably going to have, because if they don't change the aircraft, I mean, the usual.
Yeah, I guess the challenge is with an airline like maybe BA is not a great example, but Delta, perhaps. Delta, you could have, or United with their Polaris, quote unquote. You never know. Like, are you going to get the new Delta One suite, or are you going to get one of the older business class suites? So it's hard to make that choice. I think. Same with, there's some BA product as well. Like the new first class is only available on the 78 and 79, not on the 78, 78. So I think it's probably quite difficult, so that you're not, in a way, misrepresenting what's available.
They could do like the same way they do for delays. They could have likelihood. They have access of the registration numbers of the aircraft that has done X route for the past X number of years. So they know that 80% of the time, this is the aircraft they're going to put. They're going to show you anyway a seat map. They're going to tell you it's above or below average. So I understand what you're saying, because you're right, but telling us probabilities. Yeah. Another airline that, and we really drag on this one, another airline that I found a great fare to go to Asia to is Gulf Air. Wrong Alliance, never flown them. They have older products. Right now, there's a fare from London to Manila, £1,000 in business class return, stopping in Bahrain. Oh. So I was like, what? How is that possible? So, and I was not looking to go to Manila, but I looked into it because I found this fare, was doing another research, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And they have 330s, and they have two versions. If you go on their own, and that's crazy, on their own website of Gulf Air, they only have pictures of one of their long-haul plane. It's a 222 thing. Right. But Skyscanner was telling me it's 121. I'm like, it's not 222. There must be another version, which after a little bit of research, you find that there's another version with even better seats. They're old, but it's 121. So you have more privacy. Everybody has AIL access, for instance, right? So Skyscanner will tell you 121, but then could they not say, here's a link to what it looks like, 121? We'll do it anyway. We'll Google it, image search. So I think it's just added information for competitors. Anyway, I think we dragged.
No, I think you're right. I think we're coming into a really exciting and interesting period for this type of thing. And Google are just so far ahead of the pack, I think, in my opinion.
We mentioned a year ago maybe, the startup called Route Happy. They were providing amenities, so the size of the seats, whether or not you have meals, when you have a USB to OTAs, and they just got acquired by a company called ATPCO. It's an airline-owned company actually that distributes fares and data. It's old. I think it's more than maybe 50 years or something company, but they have a new CEO, and they are looking into doing stuff that is more innovative. So congrats on these guys and Route Happy, because this is exactly what the airline industry needs. The whole discussion we had in the past 10 minutes, us passengers knowing more about what to expect before even entering the plane.
Absolutely.
So back on the 380 a little bit. Have you seen the app, 380 app?
No.
So Airbus, that shows how much iconic in a way this plane is. Airbus, not an airline, Airbus has released an app called iFly A380. It's available for iPhone. I'm not certain for Google Play. Guys, look it up and let us know. So you can search for, I want to go to Florida, and they will tell you whether or not there's a 380 on that route. If there is, it will show you the route, and it will also allow you to book. I'm probably certain, though, that once you book, you're being offloaded probably to the airline. But still, and you can, if you are in a 380, you have an augmented reality section. You are actually flying. You can see stuff around you. I've not been able to try it yet. Maybe, Alex, since you're flying with Emirates to Dubai in, you said next week or in 2 weeks, maybe you should download it on your iPhone and test it while in the air to see what actually happens with this AR thing.
I will try it. That's very cool. I'd not heard of that.
Will you be flying first class?
No, I'm in business class, although I set the alert to tell me if they release any seats, because I think I have just enough miles where I might be able to do it again. I was addicted after my last experience showering on an airplane.
I'm still consolidating old pictures of mine that I've taken with my phone. Actually, I'm talking about phone pictures from back in the day. I think the first ever flight in Emirates first class for me was in 2010, maybe May 2010 or something like that. So a long time ago. And I didn't realize it's amazing how it's the same, but not the same at all anymore. So they've kept the same philosophy. And some people I know don't like, the gold and whatever, but it's amazing how, because I've been, lucky enough to do it several times, that I saw it was evolving, but seeing this picture from 8 years ago showed me how much actually it has changed. So
it really has. It really has. And it's still an excellent product. It really is. And we've talked about this a million times, but the experience end to end is what's so good. I like them.
I think that if you were to choose, like I think like you did last time, if you were to choose one upgrade, the best upgrade is on the way from Dubai to London, because then you have that full-on experience with the car, with the lounge, especially in Concourse A. I'm not saying that, the other way doesn't work, but I think it's really because that's their home hub. Mm-hmm. So that's where the experience is the most integrated of them all.
I think so too. And you really get a sense of how it can be done.
Should be done, maybe.
Yeah.
So you're not going to fly the new 777 first class. It's still only from Geneva and Brussels. We know that is going to be flying from London, from Stansted in June. Yes. I said that, I think, during the episode with Will. Sam Shui, very famous YouTuber for everything product. By the way, Sam, really, I love your video. If you ever listen to this show and you listen to this, I know you're not going to like criticism, but you have to make better sound. The sound of your videos is like sometimes you're just taken with your iPhone. That doesn't work. Yeah. Anyway, he's lucky to fly all the best first class products in the world, a little bit like 1 mile at a time. Lucky. And he's in filming his experience in the new first class. That's the first video when I see the takeoff with the virtual windows. And you can see that the virtual windows are pretty darn good because there's no flickering.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I've never seen, I could not get over it when I saw what he'd posted. Even like, and there's clearly just a fraction of a second delay, but I think that's from his camera, not from I could not get over it. And, I had high expectations, but this just surpassed them.
It's absolutely incredible. We have to do it. Availability is still very low. I'm checking.
Assessing is more accurate.
But it's because I'm not going to pay for first class Emirates. I love you guys at Emirates, but unless you offer it to me, I'm not going to pay for it. But like Alex, when there's a possibility of having a budget to fly business class by a client that I can use miles, but availability from Geneva is super low because I think you knew what's going on. There's a lot of Alex, lots of Paul, lots of Sam, and lots of others, AV geeks that are all flocking to Geneva and Brussels and trying this out. That's why there's never availability these days.
Yeah.
We'll do it. I have a hunch that although I've been flying Emirates for far longer than Alex will do that one first.
That's an interesting assertion. I don't know if it's going to come true, but we'll see. That'd be nice, eh?
A few reviews on iTunes first, all them 5 stars. I thank you guys. First, from, oh my God, all these names on, the first one is easy. Joe and Peter, from Sweden. Excellent, informative, and entertaining banter by 2 hosts working in perfect harmony. We're in perfect harmony. Nice. By far the best freaking flyer pod out there. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Then L. Jeff Wolf, I'm not sure how you pronounce, I'm really sorry, from the UK. That's a really cool one. Hi, guys. I've been meaning to write a review for a long time. I really enjoy listening to this, especially when I have jet lag and can't sleep. I am an Englishman working for ANA as a FO on the 76 based in Narita. He's based in Narita. That's amazing. We love you already. I find all your material so relevant and informative as it's my current theater of operation. I still need to go to Ishigaki. So Alex,
yes, you do.
I also feel often like I'm walking in your footsteps. At Christmas, I came home at business window seat at ANA, used the same lounges. What's even more hilarious is that I was listening to that very podcast talking about all this in the limousine bus to Haneda.
Oh, that's so funny.
Amazing. Thanks for the work, guys. Love it. Happy New Year. He just flew standby on a 350 from Cathay. And like you said, so quiet. And I love the cameras. Even though I mostly have the best seat in the house, I still found myself watching them. We love having people from the initial listening and telling us that it's
a real honor, actually.
Yeah, it is. It is. We have also an amazing email from Matt. I mentioned Matt a few, 6, 7 episodes ago. He's a doctor, and he's going to fly BA for the first time since 1998.
Wow.
What would you say to him if you were to fly BA for the first time since 1998? What's the advice to someone would you say?
I don't know, honestly, because I don't think I flew BA much in the 90s. I've only really started flying them a lot in the last 10 years. So I don't know what. I'm sure you will find a marked improvement in what you can remember. I would be very interested to hear what it was like in the late 90s.
I was about to say that to Matt. You should tell us, send me back an email. I mean, don't go out of your way to do it, but it would be interesting to see, do you feel a huge difference? I mean, of course, there's a lot of difference in the aviation industry, but do you feel that as a brand, it gives you something more, something less, that your memories? I would love that. He says that I loved. I want to have the chance to curse Alex Cruz myself.
Yeah, I don't know what difference he's going to see. I would say temper your expectations, but I don't think that that's fair on PA, because you'll see a pretty substantial improvement. Just don't compare it to other premium carriers, because I don't think that's a hugely fair comparison.
He's also written a very interesting article about the alcohol culture of flying. I'm not going to go there in this episode, but Matt, we will go there because it's a fascinating. I know that you are, Alex, I think, a trustee at Drink.
I was,
So this is a topic you also understand. Besides the little banter we have about people getting gin and tonics at BA's lounges at 8 a.m. here in London, it's a fascinating article about not only what it actually does to you as, alcohol in the air, but about the culture of it. And I think we should address that in one episode, because I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. It would be really interesting to hear, from medical professionals as well.
And
aviation medical professional. Yeah, absolutely.
Another review on iTunes, 5-star, by Gretchen Ann Spinrad from the US. Believe it or not, I hit up on his podcast because I had a fear of flying.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, I travel long haul a few times a year, often solo with my 2 young children. Deciding that I wanted to learn more about airline travel, I went to look for a podcast and loved this immediately. Paul and Alex come from a similar culture, mishmashed, and I grew up. They have a very dry humor, love it, and prove that a plane does not have to fall out of the sky every time you hit a turbulence. No. I mean, if you can fly as much as they do and still love it, I got nothing to complain about. Keep it going, guys. Thank you. Honestly, that's one of the best.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I don't think I've really talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, you have a history about that. But, go on.
Perhaps we'll dive into it in more detail in a future episode. But Gretchen, I used to have a crippling fear of flying for almost 10 years. Just awful. I couldn't even get on a plane for a very long time. So, and I can empathize entirely what it feels like, and that you're working to get over it is admirable, because it's not fun when you are feeling like that. So I admire your courage for tackling it head on and not just not flying, because then I think you miss all of the joys that are available to you all over the world. But perhaps in a future episode we can dive into that a little bit more and unpick it, because there's a lot of people that suffer from it, as I did, and we all have our different reasons. But it's definitely a topic that I think we should explore a bit more.
Yeah, we had mentioned it a few times in past episodes about the courses that some of the airlines offer. I think we mentioned both the one from BA and the one from Swiss. There are others, obviously. I think it would be nice also to have someone from the industry telling us, and how do they do these courses? Mm-hmm. Maybe what do they tell? Interesting enough, I know quite a few people actually that were not afraid. I'm not afraid at all, for instance, but became afraid. And there was no you missed a plane that ended up crashing. I know one friend that had that, and I understand that he is really now kind of fearful, but that's really like an exception. Most of the people just over time became fearful, whereas they weren't. Is it because they became old? Is it because, I don't know, but there are psychological dynamics in place
Absolutely.
that I have no idea how to explain myself, that I think would be very interesting to dive into. So it's not only people that are afraid, and then because they have someone helping them, they become less afraid or not afraid anymore. It's also the opposite happens. I find it very curious.
Yeah, I do too. It's one of those things that is grips you very powerfully. And I think there's so many different, and this I learned through going through a process of trying to fix it myself, is that there's a lot of triggers and ingredients and components that are very personal to us, that may be not the root cause, but just how it is manifested. And it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, we will dedicate. I know that we are always promising you that we will dedicate episode on X and Y topics. It's hard because we have busy lives, as you know, but we always aim, and we will aim this year at having a few guests that are very, different from just two AV geeks geeking out on airplanes. One last mention, it was a Twitter DM by Ray Linham. Hey guys, really enjoying your podcast. I'm a BA cabin crew. If you need any input from this angle, first of all, we really love that we have a BA crew listening to us. Of course, he makes us feel bad for the few times we actually criticize BA.
Well, you and I talked about this offline. I think it's been very, very rare that we have been disappointed or felt let down by the soft product on BA.
Correct.
In the air. We have our opinions on some of the hard product choices that the airline have made, but
or the management or some strategic decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
But rarely the people themselves.
Especially in the air, the frontline team rarely let us down. So thank you, Ray, for your hard work. And actually, we'll talk about it later, but I had a great experience on a very quick trip I did last weekend that really reinforces that opinion.
And he's trained to operate on 747. We're very jealous. 777, Dreamliner 319, 20, 21, 20 Neo, 21 Neo. So basically, he knows we want your life, Ray. Thank you so much.
That's so cool.
So thank you. Thank you. We really do love to have people from the industry as well listening to us. Maybe some of the things I say are completely wrong. I don't know. Back to the 380 again. So Ben Schlappig, 1 mile at a time, as a trialed and tested the new Singapore suite cabin. It's by far the most spacious first-class product in the world. That's the one that has a bed and a seat and the TV.
Yes.
And the TV is almost like your living room TV that has an arm. If you're in bed, it's in front of you. If you're on the seat, you can swivel it towards you. It looks insane.
The pictures are just staggering, aren't they? Just extraordinary.
He still says, however, that so for him it's very close to Etihad's apartment, which we haven't flown either. No. He's really lucky. And he says Etihad's apartment is a more efficient version of Singapore New Suite. So although he really loves the Singapore suite, I think he's still preferring Etihad's version of it. He has 2 gripes, or 3. First of all, the bed is really hard. Maybe
that's just a new product thing.
Yeah. It says that the cabin, that's something that Alex, at least me, I don't know about you, but I'm a warrior for that. The cabin also gets really hot, and the suite has no individual air vents. And especially when you see that what Emirates does now, you have all this fancy touchscreen, temperature, and simply having an air vent. I like air vents, and for me that's a miss. Not having air vents, it's a miss. And for him it gets really hot, so probably for me I'm going to boil to death in this.
Yeah, it does get a bit frustrating, doesn't it? And we've lamented the removal of individual air vents as almost they're almost an antique. You rarely see them anymore on modern airliners, and I think that's a little bit frustrating because, like you say, there's almost this cultural side of it where, was it the Japanese airlines that just tend to have the cabin really, really warm?
Yeah, they do. Every time I fly them, I find them really, really warm.
Frustrating. I can't get comfortable. I really can't.
And the last thing he mentions, and I think that's a bit awkward, is so the chair where you eat swivels. And the position to have dinner or lunch with the tray table open, which is at that size is not more a tray table. It's like something back from the Middle Ages, so big. But anyway, you have a view of the passenger on the other side also eating. He says you can close the door, but if you can close the door, then they have to open it every time. It's not very efficient for service, so you end up leaving it open.
Yeah,
and I get it, but I'm not sure. I mean, again, look. Guys, we're talking about one of the best products in the world for sure. So here it's not about criticizing, but it's true that having a direct view when you see that Emirates and others are doing this thing where you really feel on your own private jet thing, or it's bizarre to having to look at someone else when you eat when you have so much space.
It does seem like a little bit of a shortcoming, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Airbus is pretty confident that they will now sell more 380s. Do you think it will happen?
No. Because if it was going to happen, it would have already happened by now. Surely.
Yeah. Eric Schultz, which is I think the head of sales and marketing for Airbus, says that one of the few that hasn't left the boat. No, I'm kidding, Airbus. Wow. Sorry, guys. He says that now that the deal has been made at Emirates, it signals the market that the product is here to stay. that there's confidence in the product and that other airlines should buy it.
Yeah, that sounds like the words of a PR person. Don't you think?
Yeah, you know what? I would love other airlines to buy it. Will they? I don't know.
I just don't. Not unless they cut the same kind of deal, and then you have to question the economic viability of the company if they're going to be doing that.
And especially with so many poised to arrive in the secondary market, an aircraft that is 12 years old is not a very old aircraft. Mm-hmm. BA surely can make their 747s fly for 25,000 years more. So they probably would actually be very happy to simply take, other market Emirates aircrafts and just use them themselves. It makes much more maybe economical sense.
Yeah, I think there's more to this than meets the eye.
BA, IAG, the parent's company, was supposed to buy Niki. That's one of the news we announced in the previous episode. But at least that one, we said there was a bit of a quick pro quo about which court was supposed to handle the thing, and ended up that the Berlin court ruled that the bankruptcy proceedings should happen in Austria rather than Germany, which means that the deal by IAG, presumably for Vueling, was voided. Yep. And the Austrian court went for Lauda Motion, which actually is the name of the company from Niki Lauda that is buying back the airline. So IAG lost, Niki won, and apparently Lauda Motion will be the name of the new company.
Well, this is great. I think that it's returning to its at least spiritual owner, creator is rather wonderful. We talked about this ad nauseum in the previous episode, this sort of land grabbing and consolidation of airline ownership in Europe. I can't see that as a good thing ultimately.
No. I mean, we know that the US has reached a point with so much consolidation. Europe has a very fragmented market, but it's also due to its borders. What's the right equilibrium? I'm not sure it's certain. And we said that as well in a few episodes, that Central Europe is basically owned by Lufthansa. Yeah. And it's nice to have a bit of competition, whether, of course, here it's for independent airline like Niki Lauda's one, or from non-major airline. We say it all the time. It's nice to have competition.
It is. As consumers, it's very, very important. Otherwise, prices slowly start to creep up and you lose as a consumer.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen, by the way, that talking about low cost, that Norwegian has acquired its air operator certificate in Argentina?
Yeah, they're really going for it, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know why Argentina. I guess in South America, it's the next most logical place after Brazil, which is, I think, got quite a saturated market. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing there.
We are in this show very pro-Norwegian. I mean, we know their shortcomings. We're not saying it's perfect, but I want to see them conquer the world. And I want others to do. There's one I've never heard about before. It was called French Blue. It's a way smaller airline. They do Paris to La Réunion. And they had to rename themselves because they're entering the US market. And JetBlue says that it's too close. French Blue, JetBlue. I don't know. So they didn't want to go to court, probably because they don't have the means to do. I mean, they didn't want to, pay attorneys, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So they just rebranded 2 years after being born the entire airline as French B. And they're going to open San Francisco to Tahiti with a 350-900. So that's kind of a fifth freedom route in a way. Yeah, good luck to them. I like, it's nice to have these airlines that we never hear about opening these kind of routes. And this is what these new aircrafts are allowing, Dreamliners, the 350. It's great.
Well, exactly. And I think it suddenly makes those routes a lot more economically viable. So long may it continue as far as I'm concerned.
And long may continue French B, not to be confronted with Jet B. So since we're in the US, Bombardier, the other news. We were not wrong on this one. We were just discussing what would happen. Remember, I was saying that Delta was thinking of offloading its CS series to Aeromexico because otherwise they didn't want to pay the 250 whatever percent was. But all this is gone out of the window because the U.S. International Trade Commission just said unanimously that Boeing has no reason to complain, and there's not going to be such a thing as a
tariff.
Great news, no?
Yeah, it's fantastic news, and it's very sensible news. Again, we talked about this in the last episode that we shouldn't be surprised, or it was interesting that they actually did something, that the U.S. government imposed this tariff, and that they had a bark and a bite to go with it, but also how quickly these things have happened. Usually government intervention takes a long, long time. This was, yes, there's a tariff. No, there's a tariff in the space of just a few weeks.
It's a slap in the face for Boeing.
It is, but they had seen it coming.
Do they think they had a shot? I'm not sure. What is really interesting is the unanimous decision. Probably because Boeing doesn't have anything. They had the 717, which was the MD. What was it? The name of it before they called it 717. MD-95.
Well, there's the MD-8X series essentially, but yeah, all the way up.
They don't have any product at least for the CS100. They don't have anything that competes with it. So is that why? I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's a bit smaller than that, but I don't know. And again, we've talked about this only because we're recanting on the news, or at least updating the news. I don't see again another land grab. Boeing are in deep talks with Embraer and all of that. So it's just what's available. Let's go get it before the other guy does.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't mention that the other time. It's interesting, though, to note that 50% of the components of a C-Series are sourced from the US. So it's already a very American aircraft in a way, which, of course, then you have the whole thing about the subsidies in Canada. So the inquiry is not over. The same trade commission now has to determine whether or not these subsidies I just mentioned they had caused injury to Boeing, because they could still fine Bombardier. They would not put the tariffs because that's gone, but they would still be able to fine Bombardier. This decision hasn't been taken. It's expected this month. Embraer, since you just mentioned Embraer is kind of looking at all this, say, "Hi guys, we're still here."
Yeah.
They don't want to sell to Boeing. Many of the Brazilian ministers came on and said, Embraer is way too much linked with our defense industry. There's no way we're going to let anyone taking it from us. So that's not going to happen. But Embraer has reacted to this whole thing by they all already started going to the World Trade Organization and saying that Bombardier is cheating with its subsidies. And so there is an inquiry which Embraer is leading at the WTO. We know that these things at the WTO take forever. Boeing Airbus has never been
That's a common tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
Subsidies this and unfair practices that. It just seems, and again, they always seem to fall apart. So this is going to be very interesting to watch. I've made my feelings very clear on this acquisition. I hope it doesn't happen.
Interesting to watch. One thing is really fun to watch. Swiss, I know, guys, it's the airline of my country, but they do these videos that I really love. And this time is the CS300, so the bigger version of the C-Series that Swiss just started to fly. Actually flies to London, Alex, if you want to try it.
Yeah.
They made this video on YouTube. I'll put the link in the show notes when it's flying amongst the Patrouille Suisse over the Alps at Wengen. It's always amazing to see these videos. Are super well made.
They are so good. My kids and I absolutely love them. The music choices are always good. The cinematography is always incredible. What a cool project to be part of.
People know that I kind of like the Swiss logo. Of course, it's very reminiscent to the actual flag. I preferred the one from before, which was square. Was made by Tyler Brûlé, the Canadian, who also owns Monocle, the very hipster magazine. So 2 news about branding, about logo design. The big one is the second one. The first is interesting. Is in the US, American Airlines is trying to copyright the new logo. I love what they had the previous one. The little eagle V thing, the double A, which they did away with. So now they have this big thing that resembles a bit of a wing with an eagle in the middle that is reminiscent of the American flag.
Yes.
So they were able to trademark it. That's fine. But they're not able to copyright it. And every time they're trying, the copyright office in the US telling them, nope, we're not impressed. It's not distinct enough. It's I'm going to quote here, a mere simplistic arrangement of non-projectable elements does not demonstrate the level of creativity necessary to warrant protection. American Airlines is really not happy about that. They keep trying. Do you think they should be copyrighted, or do you think it's too bland as a logo?
Are we talking about the eagle profile with the blue on the top and the red on the bottom? I am amazed that they're not being allowed to copyright that.
I agree. There's an article on subtraction.com by Koivin. It's this very famous blog that talks a little bit of design. He works, I think, at Adobe. And he says exactly what you just said. He says, I don't get it. I think he has a point. He says, maybe the copyright office should hire a designer amongst its team to understand what actually is a logo, what is a design. Because
I mean, and I find the world of trademark and copyright utterly confounding. As I've explored it professionally and just out of personal curiosity, trying to find any rhyme or reason to these decisions is really difficult. This is a great example of that.
The one thing that they cannot, and that's understandable, that they cannot copyright is because the same office says the use of the colors of the United States flag are exceedingly common and do not lend themselves to arguments that the work's design choices were especially creative.
But it's the balance of all the elements coming together. I'm missing something.
Me too. I'm wondering, are they trying to copyright the entire thing, meaning that eagle design with the kind of flag behind it, because that's what you see on the tail. Because if it's only the front bit, that's clearly a logo, for crying out loud. And I understand why it would be able to be copyrighted. And like you said, I mean, I've also done some personal research about copywriting some stuff, including, by the way, layovers. And it
seems to be up to the discretion of whichever person you happen to come across.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going. Yeah, it seems to be there's no logic in why someone was accepted and the other one was not.
It doesn't make any sense.
So in Europe, the new Lufthansa logo. So it's the new livery, new brand guidelines. They hadn't changed it for, I think, at least 50 years. What do you think?
I don't hate it. I'm sad to see the yellow go. The yellow was such a dynamic accent to the logo delivery to the brand palette. I was sad to see that go. Other than a little kind of swatch next to the front door, isn't it? And we're talking like the size of an iPad. Perhaps maybe a little bit bigger. It's a little boring, but it's not nearly as bad as people are complaining about. I think it's very calm and soothing and professional and clean. I think it's fine.
I still like it. I had a lot of quite a few actually of our listeners sent me messages in other ways. I'm going to say hi to Elizabeth because she was really unhappy about that one. They were really unhappy. I kind of like it. It's very Euro white, again, with the credence of Euro white, because it does away with the belly used to be gray, so now it's white. There's no yellow on the tail anymore. It's only blue. Similar shade of blue, but seemingly not exactly the same. And the blue color, which is on the tail, goes up to the part of the belly at the tail, at the end of the aircraft, which, at least on the image because that's the one they released, the 747-8, looks amazing.
Yes.
I'm honestly not sure how good that will work on 320s, but
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, and I'm sure they have.
Yeah, I'm sure they have it. By the way, it was not supposed to be released until February 7th, and I think one of the management guys was doing an interview with the press. Was it even the CEO? And on his laptop?
Oh, no. I didn't hear about that. That's hilarious.
That was a week before anyways, Lufthansa had to scramble and release the official images very quickly as well. So there was an event. There was an event yesterday, 2 days ago, on live stream on Facebook. The color yellow is not fully disappearing because it's still there on the airports for signs. I think also on the menus. Yeah. So they are keeping that color, but I don't even know why they bothered putting this yellow patch on the
No, me
aircraft.
neither. I guess indifference is probably the best word to describe it. It's not a natural evolution as graceful as Cathay's was, which retained some elements of the previous livery, but just refined them in a way that was you could understand the thinking behind it.
By the way, because if you haven't seen it, we need to stress that the actual logo, which is this bird, which was designed 100 years ago. Wow. So it's really like the oldest logo for any airline, I think. It was, what was the designer? Otto Friedle, I don't remember his name. It was not for Lufthansa. Lufthansa was, later creation was from its ancestor, Luftreederei, and then that was put into Lufthansa. Lufthansa was dismantled during the war. Then the current Lufthansa bought the name back to be allowed to use it. And they bought that logo as well. And that iconic logo of the crane in a circle isn't changing. And I think that I'm glad because this is one of the best logos, not only for airlines, but in history for me, it's a very strong logo.
I agree. I'm glad that they've maintained it.
The aircraft, the 747, did a tour yesterday, Hamburg to Frankfurt, Munich, Dusseldorf. They did the whole tour of Germany. And I think they sent a 321 with that logo to Paris as well, but I haven't seen pictures yet. So soon enough, it will be all over the place.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it in the flesh.
By the way, Lufthansa has gotten 5-star on Skytrax. It's now a 5-star airline.
That's good.
We mentioned just earlier that Lufthansa owns Central Europe because Lufthansa Group has Lufthansa, Austrian, Brussels Airlines, Eurowings, and Swiss. These are the thing they actually own, because then they have their hands in all other stuff as well.
Yes.
They are doing something that I find pretty logical. They are standardizing their fleet, their 320 fleet. So now the whole group is going to buy the same aircraft, so especially for the 320 Neos that are coming up, the exact same aircraft, one single buyer, and then distribute it amongst its airlines. And the only thing that will change, of course, the livery, a little bit of the cabin design, but I mean, the cabin design, the seats will be the same. They will have the same cockpit system, the same seats, the same cabin design, the same galleys, the same freight system, the same safety.
It makes total sense, doesn't it?
It does, right?
It makes total sense. And, you've heard airlines trying to do it in the past. This sounds like an actual full consolidation and integration.
Talking about Airbus, the 321 long range LR just had its maiden flight. It's a test flight, of course. That's an aircraft that could change a lot of things, even for us in long haul, right?
Yes, it is. And I think it's going to open up more routes to more carriers and introduce more competition. This is only a good thing. And I think we talked about this briefly, or at least beat around this particular bush last episode around the single aisle replacements being a focus now that pretty much long haul has been consolidated around a couple of platforms. So this is great. I'm looking forward to flying on one. I think probably not for a year or two, but it'll be good. Really good.
Can do 4,000 nautical miles. So, for instance, you can go London to New York easily with it. What it means? It means that it will open long haul. I mean, 757, 321, the current, but it will even further open long haul to single aisle aircraft.
Yes, and so I mean, you're already seeing companies like WOW push the envelope for these, like they do Keflavik to LA, Keflavik to San Francisco.
It's crazy. That's, by the way, it's just at the limit of its.
It is, and they're often having to stop in places like Edmonton to refuel. But this will make it absolutely doable. Yeah.
And Norwegian is actually ordering, I think, at least 30. And Airbus says it's 27% cheaper than the 757. But as we said many times, Boeing doesn't currently truly have anything to compete with the 321. Nope. That's why they're thinking about the 797. Again, that's the name everybody gives it, because the 757 is a great aircraft, but it's an older design. And the 321 is poised to clearly take a lot of the market.
Boeing are going to have to get a move on if they really want to get in on this. Otherwise, they're going to get left behind.
Aer Lingus is also buying some.
Yes.
Which makes sense, because for them, going to the US.
Absolutely. It's perfect. Perfect airplane for that.
You know what? The only thing that's very selfish, for me, long haul is synonymous with twin wide body aircraft.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm also more comfortable. There's a bit more space to walk around. And I mean, if you get stuck behind the trolley, you're going to be there for a while.
And there's something about, it's like going into a big ship.
Yeah.
You're going for long travel, so you go to a 777. I like
quietly reassuring.
Size. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not going to do the 221, but I mean, and you said as much. I think Qatar does also Doha to somewhere in Europe with 320s actually or something.
Absolutely.
Anyway, still in Europe, still in Star Alliance, Brussels. What's the name of it? It used to be Sabena. Brussels Airlines.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brussels Airlines, interestingly, it's owned by Lufthansa. Up to now, Lufthansa had a more hands-off approach. They basically fired everybody. Now the management, they're taking over. They're even putting, I think, a German CEO as at the helm of the company starting in March. And they are developing something that was a bit of the case, but it's becoming kind of a low-cost airline now.
Yeah, which makes sense because they seem to be diverging a little bit the group from premium and low cost. And these guys are sort of somewhere in the middle. So it makes sense for them to tack in one direction or the other.
They are not losing money, but they're making that much. The thing here is that I'm looking to go to Africa this year, and they I have a lot of routes to Africa because, of course, Belgium was a colonizer in Africa. So Sabena was a very big airline to go to Africa, and Brussels is not as big, but you'd think that going low cost for that bit does not make sense, because they have routes where they almost have a monopoly, so they could do whatever they want. But for the rest, this one of these airlines that they don't make you feel anything.
Yeah, so true. It's so true. You're indifferent to them entirely.
I flew them and they're okay, but I almost cannot remember how it was inside. I need to Google image it to kind of remember it. So it means it's very... That leads me to the last bit on Star Alliance. Star Alliance is thinking of adding low cost into its alliance. I don't think they will open up to any low cost, but they will open up to all these airlines that have like Eurowings compared to Lufthansa. Budget, because that's the term they use. They don't use low cost. Your budget carrier will be allowed to enter the alliance. So do you think that's something that's going to happen everywhere?
I think so. It makes total sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's a natural extension of your alliance's reach anyway. Integrating it or sort of broadening the integration to include the low-cost arms of your existing partners absolutely makes sense.
When you think about your miles, not thinking about the alliance here, it's already kind of the case. I mean, if you buy something on Lufthansa and you ended up being, flying a bit on Eurowings, or you're buying Cathay Pacific and you end up flying a bit on Cathay Dragon, or Singapore, and et cetera, you are given the miles for that bit anyway. So it's as if it's part, I'm not saying it's the same airline, but it's already so well integrated that it's only normal that the mothership will take these little minions into its realm.
Yeah. I'm surprised that this has taken this long to happen. It makes total sense.
You mentioned earlier, so you did a very quick trip with BA, I think?
I did. I went to Rome for lunch. I flight in the morning, flight out in the afternoon.
Alex lives a very glamorous and posh life. As you can see, he goes to Rome for lunch with an aircraft.
Yeah, except I didn't eat anything. I gave a speech and came back. I was the first person into the lounge when it opened at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I've done that a few times. It's nice, right?
It is rather nice. You get your pick of the seats.
Too much choice. You don't know which seat to take.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did you go? Where did you go?
I went to the galleries, the South Lounge, and the seats obviously up against the window, even though it was pitch black outside and nothing was taken off. But it was interesting because it was the day before the Six Nations rugby match in Rome between England and Italy. So my plane was absolutely rammed going out there with rugby fans who were looking forward to it. But on the way back that same day, obviously later, and it was A321 both ways, by the way. And I had that killer seat 9A, which is the emergency exit without a seat in front of it. So you basically could be 12 feet tall and still have room.
My favorite seat.
It's a great seat. And the flight back, there was, I think we had 7 or 8 rows of business class, and there was 4 of us on board because everybody was going the other direction and no one was coming back.
And it was a weekend.
It was a Saturday,
I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's totally understandable. But I had a lovely experience. They had the iPad up, this legendary iPad app, and there were only 3 people with status on the airplane because you can see the list. And I was the only gold card person I could see. Because there was a gold and there were 2 or 3 blues. And we had a bit of a delay pushing back because the runway area was busy. So the cabin was secure, with the jet bridge had pulled away. And the cabin crew working the club cabin just came up and struck up a really casual conversation with me. Just, how are you, Mr. Hunter? Good to see you again. What brought you to town? It was so natural, so unforced, so friendly, just fantastic customer service, and just they used the data that they were given that I was a gold card holder, but didn't ram it in my face or make it obvious that they were scripted to do this. It was really, really impressive.
I think BA, when they do this, I mean, that's what we said earlier on this show. I think when BA does this, they are very good. That's where we see that the airline has had a long experience in how to handle customers. It's also part of the culture. The British culture is not too much in your face, obviously, but it's simply they found a right balance into how to address you, because that they know, so you can expect that they will, but it's not overly in your face, or especially that's the bit I appreciate the scripted part, because, for instance, Qatar, which I also appreciate. They're younger, their crew is younger, and you can see sometimes, it's almost endearing, by the way. You know, they address you with almost like, not fear isn't it? Come on, let's not exaggerate, but like anxiety, because they don't want to F it up because you have this supposedly very important passenger for them because you're gold, and they are giving you this script that they're supposed to tell you, and you can feel it's given. Yeah. Whereas in BA, I never had that expression. Even the one time, and I said I can't remember which episode it was in, but the one time I got gold for the first time, I sat, it was also a European flight, and I sat in, I remember it was 1F, so really first row, and this lady comes to me and starts, welcoming me as a valued customer because it was my first ever gold flight. You could feel it was, of course, she had been taught what to say, but never it felt it was scripted, and that's amazing. Being able to do that.
And it's night and day between feeling scripted. It's almost more insulting. Insulting is perhaps a bit too strong, but it's less effective than nothing at all.
Yeah. You don't want to have a robot saying you because you feel they had to say something at that point. Either don't tell me anything, or so. For instance, you remember the story when I was telling I was flying back from Hong Kong to Zurich with Swiss, and I was not marked as a Star Alliance passenger, right? When they remarked it, besides the fact that they offered me chocolate, whatever, they didn't go into script mode. They didn't have to say, okay, now we have to kind of rewind. Let's pretend he just boarded the flight and let's go into a script. They didn't do that. That's why they were good, because you felt they were sorry. They empathized. I said, don't worry, it's not a big deal. I don't need to. I just wanted to have my miles credited. I don't need the whole fluff. But there are some airlines that would have gone to the script at this point. I said, okay, so we lost the last, 45 minutes, not recognize this passenger as a valued passenger, whatever, as a frequent flyer. Yep. So they would actually start it from zero, and that would have felt
robotic.
Stop. So I think these airlines are able to, empower and trust their frontline people, their crew, to say, you know what? Just handle it the way you would handle a normal person. That's the thing. They felt that with you, they know, they see you, they feel your reactions, they know what to say, not to say. Maybe some people would like to be scripted more, so they would go a little bit more. Like a guy like the guy that addressed me in the Swiss flight understood that I was really saying, it doesn't matter, so didn't force it on me. If I were another person, I could have said, I'm really upset, and then he would have acted upon a different route to actually satisfy. And that's the sign of very good quality crew. And BA is one, Swiss is one that they have, like, you seemingly have always a positive experience with the people.
And I find it's almost universally with the more senior, as in experience, not rank in the organization, cabin crew that have been around the block many times, have seen it all before, and this is just second nature to them.
And I will add there, the other bit that I really do appreciate, and that's why I like EasyJet, and Norwegian has that as well, is like just friendly.
Yeah.
And just, we know that we are a no-frills airlines. We know that there's no much to do. There's no like frequent flyer, whatever. So they're just going to be cool. They're young. They're fun. They address you like you're just a buddy. That's why they stand for. EasyJet is orange, fun airline. That's what you stand for.
Southwest is the same deal.
Exactly. That's why I'm very interested to see these differences we just mentioned before. How would someone from Cathay Dragon address you compared to Cathay Pacific? How would someone from Scoot address you compared to Singapore? They're part of the same group. Eurowings versus Lufthansa. Are they going to the same training? Do they not care? It would be very interesting to see. For me, I haven't actually had enough experience to kind of compare the little brother with the big brother, little sister big with the big sister. I haven't done that yet.
It would be, it would be very interesting to see what the continuity of brand is on those.
And then let's move on, and we'll talk about more about BA and Heathrow next time, but which comes back to the whole point about BA not being sure what it wants to be. You cannot be two things at the same time. And at some point, they will have to make a call.
Yes, they absolutely will.
So let's go to the US to finish this show. First, it was a bit expected. The US is not anymore the second most visited country in the world. The first is for a very long time has been France. France is very popular, and I understand why. Second now is Spain, and third most visited country in the world is the US. Disappointed, Alex?
No. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. It's just, I think it's a very interesting shift in trend more than anything.
lobby, let's call it that way, for tourism, so that represent all the stakeholders in travel, say that's pretty actually dire. Say the lost spending amounts to $4.5 billion, I think. Oof. And at least 40,000 jobs not created.
Wow, that's significant.
That's a drop of 3.3%, and if you just count the inbound, so people coming from abroad, is 4% drops. It's significant. Is it long lasting? I'm not sure. The US stays a very attractive country. I still love to go there. But yeah, it made the headlines, so I wanted to mention it. I'm not sure how much it affects the air industry, though, and we'll talk in the next episode. There's been some new developments in the ME3 versus the US airlines, but we don't have time. We're already running super late on this show. The one thing I love about the US, the friendliness,
yes,
the warmth of the crews in general. This story is why I love this industry. After 10,000 flights, 30 million gallons of jet fuel, Captain Jeff Rowland prepared a typed note. He was retiring. He typed a note, put a note on every single seat on his last ever flight to thank all the passengers on that flight to having flown for me. And the note it's in full. I'm not going to quote it in full, but it's really fantastic. I'm going to just quote 2 or 3 sentences. Transporting you to destinations all over the world while you graciously endured my lame PAs, critiqued every single landing and thanked me for safe flying, provided purpose for this lifelong endeavor.
Wow.
The only one mistake American Airlines, it was American Airlines that he flew, the only one mistake American Airlines made, they paid me. I would have done it for nothing.
That's wonderful. Wow.
It is. On this final flight, his family and close friends were all in first class, apparently. The plane was decorated with balloons, etc., etc. He didn't hear, obviously, because he was landing the plane. But of course, when the plane landed, the entire plane erupted in applause to thank him. That's amazing.
Oh,
I mean, we still hear that, but that's really wonderful. As a 16-year-old kid flying around in an airplane by myself, I was like, holy moly, that's a big thing. And here I did thousands of flights in and out of there after all this time. It's really an amazing thing. How amazing is that?
Wonderful story.
What
a nice touch.
So, Philadelphia Airport. What can you tell us about Philadelphia Airport, Alex?
Well, I transited through there, like I mentioned at the top of the show, a while ago. And it was very, very easy to do. It was a nice, I think the terminal that I went through, which is where I was flying on American, actually. I flew American from Philadelphia to Manchester on a 330. And the terminal that was in was nice and new and airy and one of those long, very similar, or at least it reminded me of Dulles. Dulles has got that long kind of corridor feel to it. That and at least in the terminal that BA had, which I think in Philadelphia is Terminal A, where American and BA and I think Lufthansa and Qatar Airways are there as well. But I rather liked it. It's the biggest airport in the area, and I was impressed. Again, it was one of those ones where I was sprinting through the airport, and I didn't really get a chance to do it. But from what I understand, it's actually not that difficult to get from Philadelphia into the city itself, or from the airport into the city center itself. They've got a I don't know if it's a full train line or if it's kind of like a hybrid light rail thing, but that goes directly to the airport and then taxis as well. It's definitely a city I want to go back to. I really, really do.
To see the bell.
To see the bell and Philly cheesesteak and all that stuff. But
yeah, of course.
I think it's a city with a lot of character as well.
It is indeed. For the airport, I think American Airlines is one of their, maybe not hub, I mean, it's one of their, they own half of the airport.
They have a huge presence there. And I think it's not just because of American Airlines, but it's also a legacy of U.S. Airways had a huge presence there. And in fact, the A330 I flew from Philadelphia to Manchester, that was an old U.S. Airways route. That's why there's sort of Fortress American Airlines there as well, because they shifted it from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia in probably in the late 90s. But it's a neat airport, and they actually have a replica of the Liberty Bell made out of Lego.
No way.
in the terminal that I went through, but it was landside, so I didn't actually get a chance to see it because I only stayed airside. Which is
was it the rumor I'm hearing is that it's very busy. As in the capacity is close to max. Maybe not, of course, at every time of the day. But did you have any of that feeling? Or was like nothing?
It was busy. Oh yeah. It felt really busy, but not in an unpleasant or hectic way. There was just a lot happening. I think that they've got some pretty ambitious plans to try and expand the airport. Okay. But I don't know where they are with that. And I think actually Southwest Airlines have used it as a hub and are working directly with the city to make that happen. But I don't know how that ended up.
I think Frontier has a big presence. At least I've never flown Frontier, so I cannot say. I mean, I should try to bring a Peacock to Frontier, not United.
See if they make you drown it.
So it's mostly domestic. I mean, it has clearly, of course, international routes. You mentioned Manchester. I know that London is very important, but I have this feeling that there's aircraft coming in from abroad, and then you kind of...
No, you're right. You're right. I think in terms of the airlines that serve it outside of the US, there aren't many. There's, Air Canada, but there's BA that just go to London, Iceland Air just to Reykjavik, Lufthansa to Frankfurt, Qatar Airways to Doha. And that's it. American fly to quite a few places. They fly to Manchester, London, Rome, and a few other places in Europe. But that's about it. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a much more domestic focused airport.
And UPS.
Yeah, it's a big cargo hub as well. But again, I think that's more regional as well. It's not, There's not much.
Though one could say, I'm going to be cheeky here, since it's close to Delaware, probably these cargo planes are filled with cash to hide Anyway, sorry, friends from Delaware. We had a few, looking at the stats, we had actually a few people from Delaware listening. Right now, it's a competition between London area and California, obviously,
right?
About the most people who listen to this show.
Funny.
So Philadelphia people, you have to wake up. Your layover was short. It's hard for me to ask you if it was a good layover, but would you actually do it again?
The amenities looked fine, and I went in one terminal and had to go to another. I think I went from either B or C to A, and it was fine. And actually, the cabin crew on my flight, I think I was coming from Memphis, were very knowledgeable and said, look, you've got plenty of time, even though we're running late. Just go this way and then go that way. And I did have plenty of time. So it was easy to transition through. I don't know if that's the case for all of the terminals, because I think that there's 6 or 7 at least.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to think that we're downplaying this airport. It is a big airport. It is like more than 35 million or whatever.
Yeah.
Passengers. It is a big airport. But it's more than JFK can say, because transitioning between terminals, sometimes JFK can be a nightmare. If you say that you had no problem here, that's actually a good thing, because that's in the US sometimes, especially when you switch between non-protected, like we used the word before, tickets. If you switch between airlines and you have to switch terminals, in some cases it can be really dire.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get caught out and then you're in trouble.
Guys, anyone from Philadelphia wants to chime in and offer more insights about Philadelphia? The only reason we did it this time was because of the Super Bowl that just happened. Congrats, guys. Congrats to Eagles for winning the Super Bowl. What are your upcoming flights? We don't know what we're going to record next, so probably you will have flown by then.
Yes, going to Dubai briefly this coming weekend. Well, in 7 days. And then that's it. Really, I don't have much else on the calendar for a while. It's very weird. It's very weird. And I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Actually, I'm flying in about 2 weeks. So maybe we'll have a recording just before I do or not. We'll see. I'm flying to Asia. I'll let you know more, because we're already running. It's one of the longest episodes ever, but why not? Yeah. And you know what? I've seen, so Apple has finally released its podcast stats. Of course, only for people who listen to our show through Apple Podcast app and iTunes. And in terms of engagement, meaning the number of minutes you're listening out of our full rant for gibberish for like an hour and a half, you guys are amazing. You're listening to more than 90% of our episodes.
Yeah, you have incredible endurance, people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on that, happy flying.
Safe travels, guys.